little astroglide on you. Oh, I'd forgotten how amazingly good it feels to have sex. Uh-oh, it feels too good. I'm about to come. But I've only been in her about 10 seconds. This never happens. I always last longer when I wear a condom. What? I'm all done. Oh. And then there's a slight jump in time here. A certain amount of courage to do this work. You never know what kind of guy will show up. But on the way here today, it suddenly occurred to me that you guys are in the same scary position that we are. You don't know what kind of situation you might be walking into. Like, what if there's a guy hiding in the apartment who will mug you? Or, I don't know, there are all sorts of unpleasant possibilities. It takes guts to walk into a place like this. Why did she say that? Could she tell how nervous I was when I showed up? Can she tell it's my first time paying? A tip? $40? It's not necessary. You don't have to give me anything extra. I want to. Even though I didn't last very long, I was totally happy with the whole experience. You're an angel. Thanks so much. I just moved and that eats up money, so this will really come in handy. Are you going to come see me again? Definitely. Good. I enjoyed meeting you. As I walked out of the brothel, I felt exhilarated and transformed. It was so honest, upfront. It felt natural. A burden that I had been carrying since adolescence had disappeared. The burden has never returned. Oh. March 30th, 1999. Really? What was it like? Oh, wait. It was great. She was really nice, and it was great. You used a condom, right? Of course. Are you going to do it again? Absolutely. Could I ask you a favor? What? I don't mind that you're doing this. I've got no problem with it. But could you not bring any of the girls back here to our house? Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm sure most of them are nice people. Yeah, this girl is really nice. I'm sure. But you won't know what they're like when you first contact them. And you don't know, and you don't know, who they associate with. That's fine. I think you're worrying for nothing, but I understand. I won't bring any prostitutes here. Thank you. Now tell me more details. March 31st, 1999. And these are my friends Seth and Joe Matt, fellow cartoonists. Some of you may know them. So I had sex the other day. What? You're joking. With who? A prostitute. No, I don't believe it. Like a streetwalker? No, she was in a brothel. I don't believe it. How did you find a brothel? An ad in the back of Now. This is a joke. I'm not joking. I was supposed to be next. What? I've gone without sex for longer than you have. I'm the one who should have been next. That's ridiculous. You cheated. It's not fair. It's not like I butted in line ahead of you. It is like that. I didn't butt in front of you. I left the line you're in, the free sex line, and I walked over to the paying for sex line. You could walk over to the paying for sex line too. It moves a lot faster. There is no way I'm paying for sex. The disease factor alone is too scary. Plus, he's too cheap. I used a condom. Did she give you a blowjob? Yeah. Did you use a condom for that? Of course. Then why even bother getting oral? A blowjob with a condom is no fun. I was plenty happy with the blowjob she gave me. But what about the love? I don't care about love. But it's so cold and clinical to pay for sex. It felt odd, but not clinical. And she wasn't cold. She was very friendly and nice. This is disturbing, but it's also good gossip. I won't be able to keep this to myself. Can I tell someone? You can tell anyone you want. Okay, so that's the reading portion.
That's really great. I'd love to get you to do the whole thing sometime. But the book is just out, and I'd like to back up a little bit before to talk about how you made the choice to do this. But first of all, it seems that there's two things going on. There's one, this argument for the legalization of prostitution, but there's also, as we just learned about at the end there, this polemic against romantic love. So why don't you just back up a bit and talk about why you decided that you were going to start paying for sex and why you decided you didn't want to have romantic love.
I don't think I'd ever been really comfortable in romantic relationships. It felt like there was so much pressure on them, pressure to make the woman. It felt like it was my job to keep the woman happy or something. I didn't like that job.
Interesting.
And also, I don't know. There were always so many arguments, and there was jealousy, and it just felt like there was more misery associated with it than pleasantness. I mean, there were definitely good times, but I stayed friends with two of my ex-girlfriends, and after we broke up, it seemed like we were closer in many ways. We certainly got along better than when we were boyfriend-girlfriend. And so I was like, why do I want to go through this again? Why do I want to go through the misery of romantic love again?
Yeah, but why is it so either or? What about casual sex? I mean, why is it I'm going to have prostitutes or I'm never going to have another girlfriend?
Well, I just don't have the social skills necessary for casual sex. I can't. To me, it was either have romantic relationships or pay for sex. There didn't seem to be a third option for me.
So what about this cliche that we always hear, I'm paying her to leave? Is that, I mean, would you reduce it to something like that? I was paying for sex to you know that phrase, I'm paying it for it to have her leave.
It never felt like that to me. Actually, at the end of the book, I explained that I've been seeing one particular prostitute for 8 years now, although actually I don't consider her to be a prostitute anymore, even though I still pay her for sex. But anyways, it's
we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
But anyways, one of the first times maybe the third or fourth time I saw her, by that point, I was having them come to I had moved out into my own place, so again, basically kicked me out of the house for reasons that we go into in the book. But, so I was living on my own, so now I could have the prostitutes come to my place, which is actually legal in Canada. So this particular, I guess I'll use the name that I use in the book, Denise. About the third or fourth time that I saw Denise, I had paid her for a half hour, and when the half hour was up, we were talking, and we just continued talking for maybe another half hour, and then she went to the washroom, and I thought, okay, I should pay her for the extra half hour, so I slipped extra money into the envelope, and then she came out and left. And then the next time I saw her, she said, "Why did you pay me for an extra half hour?" And I said, "Well, you were here an extra half hour." And she said, "You don't have to. We only spent that time talking. You don't have to pay me for time we spend talking." And so we spend a lot of time off the clock, so to speak, now. In fact, I know we spend more time off the clock than we do on the clock.
Well,
but I'm happy to spend extra. I'm not paying her to go away. I'm happy when she stays.
But you know this phrase that we hear a lot about what Johns are paying for. You know, just that.
Right. I feel like this is something that Charlie Sheen came up with, right? You pay them to leave. And his insights into human sexuality, I've never found those to be particularly helpful. For me, I kind of relate to what Chester's saying. I always thought, well, I've heard, and then guys go around repeating it because it sounds kind of macho. But it's a misunderstanding. If you're actually successful as a prostitute, you're constantly trying to figure out how to get out of there gracefully because guys enjoy your company. It's that simple. And you need to get to the next thing without seeming like, I'm just treating you like a wallet. So actually, yeah, I've never really understood how that meme got put about. I think it's very, it's kind of misogynistic too. It's some weird American thing.
Yeah. But, so just on the one side we have John, and the other we have the former call girl. But Chester, to me, just doesn't seem like a typical John. And I'm kind of wondering, and he meets many different escorts, and he tells us about their different personalities, different backgrounds, but we only have one John in the book. And I'm wondering if you could talk about, where Chester fits in. Atypical?
I received the manuscript for paying for it, and I showed it to a very good friend who, in fact, totally relates to it. He's over 60, and he's a guy who was kind of a beatnik at one point and all that, and he's a lot like Chester, and there have always been guys like Chester. In fact, now, Chester may seem, I hope you don't mind me talking about you in this way, under the microscope, but today, yes, Chester might seem like an atypical John because we've developed this stereotype about the guy from the suburbs and blah, blah, blah. But, there was a time when, and also the typical John, the stereotypical John is supposed to be married and not getting enough sex at home. But, that's a very shallow way to look at paying for sex. And there was a time when a guy like Chester would have seemed completely normal and typical. It was not, he's kind of an old-fashioned man. He doesn't want to go out and have casual sex. It's either romantic or paid. And that's a kind of 19th century thing. That was very common then. And that is how men got sex at that time. That's also how a lot of young women made their way in the world. So the dating scene that we'd think about seeing in Sex and the City and all that, that existed in the 19th century in places like New York, but people were exchanging money and doing it more openly.
Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit more about this romantic love notion, because I think this is something that's not cut out. At least some of the work I've read of yours, it seems that this idea of compartmentalizing or even arguing against it is not what you're about. But Chester, can you just talk a little bit more about what it is exactly that you are happy? That you talk about that panel, a burden has been lifted from me. I mean, I'm assuming part of that is the experience that you just went through. But there's also, it seems like you never look back on this idea. But again, if you could, this is a long argument that you're having with, for example, let's talk about Joe Matt, which again, my favorite part of the book is the rage that Joe has. Yeah. You can kind of see there. It's, he's so jealous and he's so angry. But, he also calls himself a romantic, which cracks me up. But can you just talk a little bit more about...
You doubt Joe's romantic impulses, Tracy?
Sorry?
You doubt that Joe has romantic impulses?
No, I'm just, everyone experiences romance differently. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Joe was, that was the part of the book where Joe felt I hadn't really captured his personality. He is longing for love. And he feels that is something he wouldn't get if he was paying for sex, and that's he wants that affection, that someone who sees him as special and all that kind of stuff.
Well, how about we just use, so these two characters, for those out you there